4v2 was the most fun invasions in my opinion in the entire Souls franchise. I think like 4v2 was like peak invasion. That was like the most fun because it's still extremely challenging because you're fighting 4 players. You basically have no chance going up against 4. But because you have a teammate, you have the opportunity to work with your teammate, to separate people, do some bait and switch. There's a lot more tactics, guerrilla tactics nonetheless, that goes on to cleaning up a 4v2. Those were the most fun in my opinion. Very challenging, but very fun. Would be nice also if, you know, if that DLC, if it introduced like an increased player limit. No solo invasion is Reddit's default. You know what's funny though? I think there's a way to please everyone. as crazy as it might sound, sorry. I think there's actually a way to appeal to like most PvEers, even those that don't want to PvP. Most PvEers and most PvPers. I actually think there's a way. But it takes some work and it takes some effort. Here is how I see it. So, I think that if you have the proper systems in place, you can definitely have something that works. You can have something that works and that's, you know, that has enough players and that only includes people who actually want to participate in PvP. And if you have systems in place that incentivizes PvP, now you're in a much better spot. So hear me out. If, for instance, you only had, like, if, for instance, imagine for a moment that Hunter's Tongue was done right. So you didn't need all these garbage items to be able to play with your buddies. So you could pretty much play the game solo online on your own and play with buddies without getting invaded. So this is basically what Reddit wants. Imagine you give that to them, right? You give it to them, you give them what they want, but if you activate the Hunter's Tongue, you get like say, I don't know, twice as much runes or like 0.5, like half as much runes from killing like PvE enemies around the world. So like having that active is like a bonus to like, let's say item drops and runes. I mean, the number itself is not really important. It's just, you know, give a way to incentivize people to have the tongue active, right? And obviously if you activate it, you can't turn it off until you're at a site of grace, for instance. So that's one thing. So now you incentivize people to actually play with it and PvPers as well. And then on top of that, you give rewards for defeating invaders or defeating enemy. And I think a good way to approach that would just be the simple Dark Souls 2 way, where you give upgrade materials for defeating other players. And so you'd pretty much have PvEers have the option to basically farm invaders to get better items around the world, you know, better everything. So you give strong incentive for players to PvP, but you don't force them to. And on the other hand, if you only let people that want to PvP, then there's no reason to have that thing favors hosts so much. So what do I mean by that? There wouldn't be any reason for players not being able to interrupt fog walls, for instance, right? So you'd be able to yeet people out of fog walls because why not? Everyone agreed to PvP here. And then in the same vein, you would not have a host that has a rune arc where everyone else doesn't. Everyone should be on the same playing field health-wise because everyone agreed to PvP. So when you introduce one of these changes, if you make everything else kind of fall in line with that, you would get a better PvP experience on its own, but it would also let the people that just want to do their thing, you know, alone. And if they decide to try it, well, it's going to be a more cohesive experience and a more balanced experience. So I think that's how I see it. So pretty much, it's kind of a big change to how like invasions are, because usually like you would get invaded when you don't want to. But I think that would also take care of a lot of the bullying, like, you know, twinks bullying new players and whatnot. I know some people are into that and that would displease them. So I'm not saying that what I'm offering here is a bulletproof solution that pleases everyone. I do think, though, that it would please the majority. I do think that it would please more hardcore PvPers like me, and it would please actually Redditors and PvEers that don't want to have anything to do with PvP. So you'd still please both, but it takes a lot more work because you have to have a nice PvP experience that's more balanced to please the PvP crowd and let the PvEers do their thing if they don't want to. And it's also important that for the player base to still be big enough for the multiplayer interaction, you definitely would want to have like an incentive for players to participate, even for the people who normally don't PvP. So give good enough rewards, whereas like the Taunter's Tongue, for instance, like giving like better drop rate, more runes, that's a big one. Like giving a reward for killing invaders that's worth it, like upgrade material, depending on perhaps even your own weapon upgrade level. That could be another one too. And same thing for invaders. Invaders should also get like upgrade material for killing a host. The size of the reward, that's something that would be up for debate, and that would need to be tested to see like what would be more appropriate for each level and whatnot. So that's not really important. I'm not really worried about that. But also something like what I just mentioned would really go hand in hand with a level cap that's lower, right? I've talked about this so much. If you lower the level cap to where the max level is not 700, it could be 200 or lower. It could be 100, could be 200, could be 150, could be 125. I don't care, as long as it's not above 200, because above 200 there's no argument. But if you lower the level cap and you incentivize people to play at that level cap, you're just going to have more players that play at the same level. So then again, then it makes more sense to have PvEers just be able to do their thing, because you're not going to rely on them as much for activity, for invading, for instance, because you have more people playing at the same level bracket. So you need to have all these things in place for it to work hand in hand, because if you just do one, like if you just take away the ability to invade PvEers, it's just going to kill like a big portion of the game. So it can't be like something that comes on its own. It needs to have like the whole package that comes with it. It's kind of like a whole like design philosophy, right? So that's how I see this. You know what? Let's I see a Serpent Hunter. Let's shut down that damage, boy. Actually, we have a pretty bad damage because we actually have what's it called? It's raining, so kind of ballsy to go for oh wow, he had 1 HP, the odds.